Okay, so thank you very much for joining me to talk to me. And please introduce yourself and who you are.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh, which is a Sikh greeting. My name is Rajinder Singh Mago.
Rajinder Singh Mago, and so please let me know kind of what is your role in the Sikh Society of Greater Chicago?
My role is voluntary. I do community outreach and so that people in the mainstream know who we are, and then bring back some information to our own community that, okay, this is what's happening in the mainstream. Let's participate here, let's participate there, let's go on this parade, let's go on this event. Those kinds of things that I do. I do that all voluntary because professionally, I'm a mechanical engineer. So, and I worked for a corporation for 42 years in this area. So I'm retired right now.
Okay,
And
that's what I was going to ask. That's a long time, 42 years.
yeah, and actually I retired about 8 years ago.
Okay,
Yeah,
congratulations.
thank you.
Uh, you do a lot of interfaith activity. I often see your name pop up when I'm looking at things about Sikhs in the local area. You appear in news articles. I know you've taken part in the World's Parliament of Religions multiple times and things like that. Do you want to say a little bit about any of that?
Yes, that the World Parliament Religions in Chicago in 1993, that's when I got involved, or actually our community got involved in it. And I was a member representing our community. Later on, I became the trustee of the Parliament of World Religions, and was state trustee till 2009 when the parliament was in Melbourne. So I was there, and still I'm trustee emeritus and participate in a lot of activities where they need us. Just the recent parliament that happened in Chicago last August, I was fully involved, almost whole year having meetings and all that, preparing for our community's participation and in general, because the head office of the parliament is in Chicago. So we know the staff, and if they need any help from us, the local people, so they count on the board and also emeritus trustees sometimes, so I'm engaged with them.
Great. It seems like serving longer is a big part of that interaction, and also kind of a big part of the interaction of the Sikh community with other communities.
That's correct. Yeah, to organize the longer at the McCormick Place for this past parliament, that was a big chore, and it was took a lot of meetings and a lot of things to organize, and a lot of parts of the mechanism. Because of some of the issues at the McCormick Place, we had to do it outside of the building, and
Oh,
then you have to get the water line and the gas line and all those things, and all the different permissions and certificates and from the city and from others. So yeah, that was a big thing.
that's the hard behind the scenes work of feeding that many people.
And that's right, every day for the week.
All
Yeah.
right. What can you tell me about, actually, I guess we should say, what can you tell me about the beginnings of the Sikh community in the Chicago area? Like, how long have you lived in the Chicago area?
I've lived in the Chicago area from 1971, 72. And the earlier than that, usually there were not too many Sikhs here. The Sikh students used to come in the 60s, and then they would go back because, of the immigration rules and regulations of that time. But later on, after mid-60s when the civil rights, thing happened. And then there were some changes in the immigration rules,
Right.
whereas they could get green cards, permanent residence, if on the basis of your education and all that. So I had a mechanical engineering degree from a university, and I applied, and a lot of people did that, and then they got green cards. So I came on that green card kind of a thing where I applied in 1960 7 or 8, 68, and then it took a couple of years, and then I got my visa in 1970. So I came here. So at that time, earlier times, only students were there. They didn't have resources for any place of worship. So they just met on the weekends at somebody's apartment or house and all that. And after this mid-60s, then people started coming in, including some professional people like doctors, engineers, and scientists and all that, who had reasonably good jobs where they could make enough money that they could spare something for the community services kind of things. So they set up an organization, and I think in 1972, and then some of them decided that we should have a place of our own, like a Gurdwara. So some of them started looking for places. So finally, they found something in Palatine area. At that time, it was not a part of village. It was an unincorporated area. So
Mm.
they got few acres there, which was available at that time. So some people pooled in money, their own personal money, and got some guarantees from different people. And I remember I also, I think it was in 1975, 74 or 5, that, they had to give some kind of a written guarantee to the bank that if in case, we falter, we pay. So I remember at that time, it was $3,000 that they had maybe 20, 30 people all signed up for $3,000
It was
each.
a small community and not with a lot of wealth at that point.
That's right. So they got the land. And then there was some engineer, there was one architect, and he drew up plans. And then in 1975, they broke the ground for the building in Palatine. And then it took them about 4 years to build enough room to be able to operate a Gurdwara. And so 1979 was the first time we opened up the Palatine Gurdwara, and that was the only one in the whole Midwest at
Yeah,
that
that's what I thought.
time. Yeah, and people from maybe 100 miles away, they would drive on the weekend to come out and, to sit with the community and be able to pray, listen to the kirtan and all those things. People from Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, they were all come. That was the only one in the whole Midwest. Yeah, so and then over the time it has done improvement, expansions and all that. So it's pretty good right now because the community kept on increasing in numbers because of the immigration policies, the extended families, the people got married, they got brought their wives, and then they have children, and now third generation children here. So right now, it's pretty busy on the Sunday weekend
Yeah.
programs.
Do you have a sense, like roughly how many families are part of the community that come regularly?
Well, they're not that everybody comes every Sunday. So I think a couple of thousand people they would come because people come in, stay there for a while, and then leave, and new ones come in and all that. So keep changing. Not that day because they have other things to do also.
Yeah.
So yeah, so th th those many people I've seen. fill up the place. I've seen wall-to-wall people, standing room only on some side. So it's a pretty large area, but still full on especially some special Gurupurabs, special events. And parking, in fact, we have, I think, 3 parking lots. And then now they have to park on street and on the grass, on the lawn in the back of the building. So it's seems like that, they need more room.
What was the site that's kind of across the street from the current Gurdwara? Was that the initially owned site, or is that like an additional building?
Or you mean that another Gurdwara building, a small building that
Yeah, there's a small building kind of across the street.
yeah, I think we got it 4 or 5 years ago
Oh,
only.
it's newer. I thought that maybe it was the
Or
original building.
no, it was a church, and I think it was closed up for a long time. And then it was they decided to purchase it because it's quite close to our Gurdwara building. So that in case we would need to use it or something. So far, I haven't seen a lot of utilization of that at this point, but it's there. They kept it clean and all that. So it used to be an old church, closed, and then they purchased that about 4 or 5 years ago.
Got it. Um, what what is the relationship of your community with other communities locally, like religious communities, or we already talked about interfaith a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess in the beginning, the neighborhood, they didn't know who these guys are. So in the very beginning, like, so when we just first moved, early 80s and all that. So at that time, and it was unincorporated area. So some of the people didn't know who these people are. So the kids, we had some windows broken and all that in those times. But eventually we talked to all the neighbors, explained to them who we are and all that. So eventually we haven't had any such incident in a very long time. But in the beginnings, we had some concerns of that. And then later on, it became part of Palatine, got incorporated into Palatine. Then there's a police rounding up and all that. So it's a pretty reasonably safe for now. In general, we try to explain our neighbors in that area, invite them for some of the prayers or langar and all that, and some events, some candlelight vigils and things like that. So we've invited some local people. That is the neighborhood. And then the other communities, like in Palatine area, Kokani, Chicago, all that, we have had several interfaith events at our Gurdwara and invited them, all interfaith people, and then they usually come. So we are quite open to inviting others and also participating and going to others who would invite us. So we've been quite participating both ways.
Yeah. What about on the global level? Do you have connections? You probably have connections with other Sikhs and other communities. Um,
Yeah, the most of the gurdwaras, almost all the gurdwaras are independent. Okay, they are not under any national or international organization. It's just the locally managed, locally financed, and local membership that takes care of it. But as a community, global community, other gurdwaras, they might have, like some of the people who do singing and kirtan and prayers and talk and all that. If there's somebody comes from India and he's gonna go around making around the different gurdwaras, okay, so they would know that okay, so and so has come to that gurdwara. They call them, okay, we would also like to have them here. So they cooperate in that way, but everyone is otherwise independent.
okay. Uh, can you say describe a little bit the leadership structure at your Gurdwara?
Yeah, the leadership is managed by elections. The leadership is all elected by the membership. So those people can vote who are actually members. There's a annual membership fee, just small, not a large. But and you have to fill out a form, and you have to be a Sikh and be a member with the voting right to vote. So every couple of years, they have a voting and they change. And their board members, I think, I don't know, about 9 board members or 7 or 9, something like that. And then they elect that on rotating basis that every election year they would have 3 new ones, the old ones will go away and the new ones will come in so that there's always a mixture of old and new. Then they would elect a president out of that, an executive secretary, a religious secretary, a finance secretary, and other things like community outreach or special projects or school library. So we have a library and a school for children, which runs only on Sundays. So, and they would assign one of the board members to do that. So this management structure is also totally local and by elected board members who would amongst themselves select their executive committee. And then they would take care, then they would have a staff, paisabs who take caretakers, and maybe a jatha, kirtan jatha, usually a permanent one living there. And then also some visiting ones who comes from India and just visit around, stay there maybe for a month and then go. New ones come in. So on rotating basis, some of those. But as a permanent staff, they usually have 1 or 2 jatha, and then 2 or 3 people, paisabs, caretakers permanently.
Who are there and they care for the scripture and they read from the scripture throughout the day and what other kinds of things do the Baisabs do, the Granthis?
Yeah, the Granthis. The Granthis, as the name suggests, Granth is the Guru Granth, the book, and the Granthi means the caretaker of the book. So they are on duty that visitors come in at any time because it's open. So people would come in, they would have to attend to them and then maybe give them prasad. And if somebody wants to get a prayer done, an ardas, they will help that, and then make sure that somebody is there to talk to them. A lot of times there's no problem on the weekends because Sundays, they're wall-to-wall people. But during the weekend, working hours, working days, there are not too many people, but there's might still be some visitors, out of town visitors, or local retired people or older people. They would just go there to Gurdwara and maybe, have longer, listen to some kirtan, that. Plus, sometimes there is always part going on, like a khand part or sage part or something for somebody's personal events, those kind of parts going on. So those people will do this. And then, look and keep an eye on the building and facilities. And there's a langar open all the time, like every day, even though it's a weekday. They make langar they know about average that about how many people come in on a weekday, maybe 100 or so. So they would make, some langar for 100, 150 people. If it's finished, they can always make more. But every day they have some langar done,
That's quite
prasad.
for a weekday, 100 or 150 people stopping by.
Yeah, they do. So and then there are sometimes there's local people who live in Palatine area, of course Sikh, some retired, some older. They have, okay, let's go meet other people. So maybe a group of 20 people might just senior citizens or others they would have. So I think once a week they have a senior citizens meeting where maybe they discuss some Gurbani and also maybe do some activities. Sometimes they have a speaker or a lecturer come in on health or general topics, so keeping busy that way. So there's some activity going on all the time, but the uh, proper Kirtan and all that happens on Wednesday evenings, Friday evenings, and the Sunday from morning till maybe starting maybe 8 o'clock till about 2 p.m. or something. So there are a lot of people on Sundays. But the Gurdwara is supposed to be open all the time. But since, 9/11 and all that, when, security became an issue, then they started closing the doors, I think at about 10 p.m. or something around, and then open in the morning, 7, 8 o'clock, 6, 7, something like that, just to be sure, because the local police and all that, they have come in there and suggested that, okay, you have to do this, this, and that to be secure and safe. So there's some regulations like that. So they have to follow that, and uh, can't follow our regular historical thing that the place is open day and night. Anybody can walk in anytime with that,
Yeah,
which was happening, and which is the part of Sikh Gurudwara, that anybody can come in at any time, knock the door. But now they have been a little bit careful because of the security. But still, if any needy person knocks on the door and then they see that it's a legitimate person, I mean, they will let them in.
that was such a painful thing about what happened in Wisconsin in 2012.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know, from being someone who's visited a lot of Gurdwaras, that how open the communities are.
yeah.
Just walking in and is welcomed, to know that hurt that tradition in the U.S. of being able to be quite that open because
Yeah,
he's intent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But so in more recent years, you said that early on, in very early days of the Gurdwara, that there was some vandalism. Are things like that better at this point?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't heard any vandalism in many, many years now. So it because we walked over to the neighbors and then gave them pamphlets and then showed them, what we do and all that. So I think they have pretty good idea of who we are. And now, earlier times I remember in, early 70s, there was because it's an unincorporated area, there was not too many people living there. It was just open and very few people lived. But now, I mean, there have been development, so many houses, new houses have been built, so people from all over have moved in. Not all of them are Sikh. Maybe, I think only maybe 3 or 4 Sikh family that I know, they would live around the Gurdwara.
Oh, I've always
And
wondered that if there were Sikh families that are living near the Gurdwara. Not so much.
not so many. Yeah, I know 2 or 3. That's all, and everybody else is non-Sikh. So now they have an idea of who these people are. They're okay, and so we haven't had any issues. Quite a while.
Good. You've already answered some of the questions. I guess you could say, are there activities that are not religious? Like you mentioned the school, but I was thinking of like maybe language classes. Are there other kind of social cultural events?
Yeah, yeah. So we have what we call Gurmat school, which is Sunday school. and it's only on Sundays for 2, 3 hours, from 6 years to, I don't know, 12, 13 years, and teenagers, children that they have every Sunday. They have classes, and they teach them Punjabi language, Gurbani from Guru Granth Sahib, and the Sikh history. So mainly they touch on these three things. And then whenever there is some Gurpurab, some celebration, some big days, holidays, celebrations, then they would organize the children to maybe do some presentation, or sing together or do some kirtan and all those things. And then a couple of times a year, they would have camp, children's camp there, especially when they're out of school, summer, and then they would have a camp for a week. And then the children won't stay there. The parents will drop them off in the morning and take them home in the evening. But yeah, so that will be a full whole day kind of a thing. And then they used to organize it outside the Gurdwara, also in some park district and some place, out of town also. So they still do that. And Gatka, sometimes they teach Gatka, that what that Gatka is, yeah.
Martial art.
Martial art, so they do that. And then recently they would have a community cultural, like a picnic kind of a thing. They have a picnic right on the grounds. They just had it last month. So every summer they do that. So yeah, basically this, and then they would teach singing, music, or harmonium, give lessons to children or those who would want to take them. And there's a library. There are Punjabi books and some Sikh religious books. Then they have a medical center, kind of. It's an office where some doctors, local Sikh doctors, they volunteer maybe an hour or 2 hours on a Sunday, on a rotating basis. Then they have a room for seniors, if they want to discuss something or meet. So they have such facilities within the Gurdwara, and of course longer, and the longer senior citizens come in during weekdays also and meet and then talk and then have longer. Yeah.
You're already kind of answering this, but the next question is about helping people, and so you said that sometimes if needy people show up, they can receive food, but what other kinds of things does the community do that helps people?
Yeah, so I think our community has been active that every like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all that, they go to Salvation Army in Chicago, and then they kind of take in groceries and also food, and then serve food on especially these 2 days, Thanksgiving and Christmas. They are hooked up with the Salvation Army, that so and so that couple of years ago the Salvation Army gave the Sikh Religious Society like Lifetime Achievement Award
I
for
saw
having.
a news item about that.
Yeah. So they've been doing that. And since 2 or 3 years ago, I think we've had April as designated as Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month in the state of Illinois by the legislature, and the governor signed it. Actually, the governor came to the Gurdwara, and of course, he signed that legislation to make that a law. So we celebrate that during April also, the Sikh Awareness and Appreciation Month in Illinois. That activity is there. So, and then all the time there are some visitors from India, some special Kirtan, Jatha, or some important people. They would come and visit and lecture or katha. and do those kind of a thing. So there's a lot of activity going on. There's, very busy all the time.
Yeah. Um, are there any special needs of this community versus like the broader community?
Yeah, basically, I think the security was one thing after 9/11. And then also financing is always there because there's some projects they want to do. Everything is all for paid up by the members, those who come there. And a lot of time, all the members can't pay because maybe some people can afford it, the others can't. And few people who are doing well, maybe they would, you know, give more for expansions and of the building, of the facilities, of the equipment, and of course, be able to pay the staff and the parking lot and maintenance, building maintenance, and so utilities, and so there are a lot of expenses to run a place like that. And of course, Langar, a lot of times, most of the times on Sundays, the Langar is sponsored by some family or some community, as you know. But there may be some time that, there wasn't anybody, and during the week, it's nobody's sponsoring a Langar for, 200 people every day. And then the staff who lives there or any visitors. So there are a lot of expenses. So I think financial support, they're always looking for that, especially to expand for expansion as well and maintenance. Yeah. And then they keep a good relationship with local government, like Palatine police and other local representatives, so law enforcement and lawmakers and all that. You have to keep in touch with all those people so that in case they need anything. But other than that, they're pretty much self-supporting, pretty much self-supporting.
Do you think there are specific challenges that the community is facing right now or that are coming other
Uh,
than you said?
yeah, the challenges is always that what I hear is okay. How are we going to get our next generation interested and come to Gurdwara more often? Okay, that is usually the biggest challenge, and I think that's not it's not uncommon with the others as well.
Yeah,
So is this yeah? So it's the same challenge that in the language is the challenge because a lot of Guru Granth Sahib and other things are in Punjabi language, and next generation people children, they don't know Punjabi, they grew up with English here. So there's always stress about, teaching children Punjabi language so that they can they can read the Guru Granth Sahib, understand Gurbani and things like that, and also programming in a way which is interesting to the next generation, the younger people. So that how do we there's always talking about how do we get our next generation interested coming to Gurdwara. So they keep looking, what do the others do, and all that. And then we are kind of a little tied up with the cultural baggage up to this point. Okay, we can do this, we cannot do that, we can do only religious things here, and we cannot do some of the well, with sports, it's okay. There could be a volleyball, basketball net out there that kids can. But still, this is usually an issue that how do we bring them in?
yeah. So that's part of the the Sikh community, but that's like you said, that's a lot of communities, right? It's not just only. It's wondering, well, what do we do to continue to draw in the veneration.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what would you say is the local Sikh community's current outlook? And do you have future plans? Do you know about future planning for the community for other sites, or are you building, or are you trying to maintain the current site?
I think for this Palatine, they're just trying to maintain that site only. But there's another Gurdwara in Wheaton.
Oh,
Yes, so there's a Gurdwara in Wheaton, second Gurdwara that came into being maybe 10, 12 years ago. And then there's one smaller one in the city on Devon Avenue. There's a Devon and Western, but that is also like, a small, it was somebody's store front, and then on the second floor, he just let it, be a Gurdwara. So other than that, at this point, I don't think there are any plan that we know of that we're going to make another Gurdwara. Maybe they might need it because sometimes on special days, the place is full and the parking was just, I think, a couple of weekends ago, there was a Gurpurab and we went and we couldn't find parking. So they opened up the lawn, the backyard of the Gurdwara, and then
yeah.
yeah, so that could be an issue. But now they're restricted. That is the only area their house is built all around, so they cannot park anyplace else. Uh, so could be that if need be, somebody might come up with an idea of making another Gurdwara somewhere else because now there's a Palatine and the other one is in Wheaton and now in the city. So they might see another location somewhere. Okay, enough if there are enough Sikh families living in that area, then somebody may start, but there are no plans of such thing that I've heard of.
Do you think the Sikh population in the Chicago area is growing, continuing to grow?
Yes, it definitely is because I go to the Gurdwara and I can't recognize people who are there, because a lot of new people coming in. It's all, and especially after the COVID, for the COVID 2, 3 years, the immigration was kind of slow because they weren't working hard enough or a lot of backlog. And now a lot of those visas been issued and new people are coming. So I can't recognize a lot of people. More and more people are coming. And if you know about the immigration process, you become a U.S. citizen, and then you sponsor your immediate family, your parents, your wife, your children, and your siblings. And I remember when I first became U.S. citizen in 1976. And I think August, I got my citizenship. And then a month later, I applied for my younger brother at that time to sponsor him. And he was here in 6 months, like April of 77, I think he was here. But now it takes about 15 years for somebody, to apply and all that. So there are a lot of people maybe have been waiting all this long. And so I'm sure there's a big, long queue for all those people. So there'll be more people coming in. Plus, situation in other countries, in India and others, if they are unhappy about it, depending upon what politically happening there, then a lot of people want to get out of some of those countries and come to the United States. So I think more and more people will be coming.
Well, those were all the questions that I had. I want to say thank you so much for talking to me today, but also thank you so much for all the times that you've talked to my students from Oakton.
No
Uh,
problem.
I hope I can keep sending students to talk to you.
Yeah, definitely. And at any time, if you, if you want somebody or if you want me to come to your class there also, I mean, I don't mind doing that either. If your management says, okay, we can't send the class for this and that reason.
Okay.
So yeah, but
Yeah.
it's always good to go there and actually see and experience the community and all that. It's always there. But sometimes if it is not possible, then that is another option
Yeah.
too.
Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.